Sean Dustin spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. Upon release in 2006, he had nothing but the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and legal paperwork. In 2010, he kicked a long-time methamphetamine habit and started the long climb back up the ladder of life. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. If you want transparency and authenticity, you're in the right place. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and this is Sean Dustin.
What's up? This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I am your host, Sean Dustin. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. This is the second interview I have this evening. And if you're enjoying what I'm doing and you're getting any value out of it, do me a favor and kick some of that value back. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button in the corner. Hit thumbs up too. That helps as well. If you're on Facebook, do me a favor, like and share this episode or broadcast. If you're on the podcast platforms, do me a favor, subscribe. If you're on Apple, subscribe, rate, and review if you can, if you're getting anything out of what I'm doing. And also, too, all the ways to connect to the show if you want to support the show, either monetarily or the free way, which I just gave you a couple of examples of how you can do that. Go to linktr.ee /nowhere to go but up, and all the ways to connect to the show will be there, and also social media, anywhere that you're going to connect to the show will be there. This evening, my guest is Brian Carpenter. He's a former Washington football team player, which was previously the Redskins, I believe. Was recently convicted of a conspiracy to commit wire fraud and was sentenced to 6 months home confinement, 50 hours of community service. Brian's here to talk about his conviction and the mistakes that he made as a business person and in life, and what he's doing to kind of redeem himself since then. So I'm going to bring Brian in here. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. So why don't you go ahead and, give everybody a little bit of background on yourself and, kind of let us know where you, how you got here and what you hope to get out of doing this.
Okay. Well, I'm Brian. I'm from Flint. I played football at the University of Michigan. I played here with the Washington Redskins. Played 3 years in the league. I was a businessman. I'm a businessman here in the DMV area, and that's pretty much my story in a quick summary. So,
yeah, I mean, that's not too many people can say they were NFL players. That's a small fraternity there. My friend Holly here, she did federal time and she's a paralegal and going to school to, I believe, become a lawyer. And she says she knows a little bit about your story. So yeah, how did all of that come about? I mean, you started a business, janitorial business, and I guess you were doing that for 4 years, and then you got caught up in something. Was it the normal kind of conspiracy where? Oh yeah, she's a prison consultant as well. Sorry about that, Holly. How was it a conspiracy that somebody told on you, or was it more of a conspiracy that you were involved with some other folks and got drug into it, or did you actually know what you were doing?
No, what we had anticipated. Well, the case was based upon Metro supplies and invoices that were created. We supplied invoices to Metro and supplies for 15 years. We were asked to hold some of the product for them, and by their rules and regulations, we were able to do that. Okay, we were able to hold it until they're asking us to ship it at a later time. And we've done that for several people through years, warehousing, because if you procure something, then you're able to ship it at a later, whenever the customer requests it. So if you buy something and you ask me to hold it and ship it to you at a later time, well, we saw that as one of the rules that was in their procurement rules, so we didn't think it was anything wrong with it. And I don't know. We still don't know what happened on that end to kick it off. There was other companies involved, but we were the only ones that were brought to court on it. It was 10 other companies that were involved in it. They all invoiced and processed, and we were the ones that were being held responsible for what their employees was asking us to do.
Why do you think that is? Do you have any idea or any inkling or suspicions?
Yeah. Well, what we really believe is that because of who I am and what was going on, that this was brought about. We actually never got the opportunity. Most times in procurement, you're given the opportunity as a businessman to cure it. If you've come to me and say that you've got a problem with something, you would give us an opportunity to fix it. When you're dealing with government or procurement or anybody that's procuring something, or if you're a customer off the street, if you call and you place an order for something, something doesn't come in right, something's wrong on an invoice or billing or whatever, you typically are given the opportunity to call that person and fix it. And we were never given that opportunity.
Huh, that's interesting. So Holly's asking, well, she's curious of what the actual charge is.
Attempt to commit wire fraud or conspiracy to wire fraud.
Okay. Yeah, the conspiracy charge, and Holly was actually caught up in her case on a conspiracy as well, in the white collar
right.
type deal. So yeah, I mean, so it was basically like if I'm hearing you right, like you didn't really do anything wrong, or you misinterpreted something, and or misunderstood how it was written, or how you perceived the actual rule itself.
Well, yeah, it was their procurement rules. Okay, that we based it upon their procurement. We found that, when you look back at this was a 7-year investigation for what they said $300,000 worth of stuff, which it cost us more in legal fees to deal with this than it would have been for us to actually give it what they were disputing about it. And we were actually never given the opportunity to do that. So we found that to be, and then for it to go on for as long. But I just thank God. I thank God that it was a lesson learned from this. I thank God that we were able to move on from this. I thank God that I've never spent a day in jail through this whole process, all of this that was going on. We're able to come out the front door on this and able to take this story and move on past this and be able to educate people, because if you coming through this system and you're realizing what's going on, that dealing with the feds, dealing with the federal government, they can indict a ham sandwich. I mean, they can indict anybody. It takes nothing to get indicted, but it takes a hell of a lot to get out of it and to deal with it. And what you're forced to deal with, you have to decide how to take the loss, how to deal with it. When I'm looking at 7 to 20 years on something and that I knew that I was going to fight it all the way and deal with it. And then for them to come back and say, I'm going to walk back out the door on this, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially too, when you're dealing with the federal government, and I've been to federal prison myself, not for a long period, but I mean, I've kind of dealt with that, or listened to a lot of folks that were on conspiracy charges while I was fighting my case, and Holly says, conspiracy, they don't have to prove, they popped you on wire fraud, and that's a really easy charge, and how are you going to prove that,
Right. Yeah.
And we have another comment here. He says, I do understand that he admits to wrongdoing. However, I'm interested in knowing what his plans are now. And that's from a Facebook user. I'll get the name here. It doesn't show up on my who it is.
Well, one of the things I'm doing is I'm starting a foundation to give back to a lot of the youth. And speak to them about some of the things that I've gone through and some of the things that I've learned and carried on, and dealing with some of the disappointments that I've had to face along this way, and try to get these young kids to understand that I was blessed because I had the means and some of the means to be able to hire some of the best attorneys in the DMV in this area. Mm-hmm. To deal with that. In most instances, people aren't able to do that. They weren't able to provide a defense for themselves like that, to go up against the government. So I'm proud of it. I'm glad about it that it happened, that I was able to get that, and the judge was able to see it in the way that we saw it without bringing on additional issues. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Holly, commented again, oh my God, 300K, ridiculous. Yeah. It's about low hanging fruit and you're a big name.
Yeah. That's what I've been told several times, that especially on this level of white collar or whatever the situation would be, that to pursue this, I found it to be ridiculous, and due to the fact I was never interviewed from anybody, never interviewed by the FBI, never interviewed from anybody about it. So I've always felt as though to be blasted all over the country, everywhere about this situation, it created more damage on the reputation and what we're doing and what's going on than what this was actually about, especially because we were never given the opportunity to fix it.
Yeah. Holly says, I commend you. He needs to educate on any government intertwining business, and yes, his story. You need to know how to move forward as we go through this crap. I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet now. And then she goes, you're 100% correct. Make that 501c3.
There you go. Thanks, Holly. I plan to do that. That's what the process is dealing with now.
And so explain a little bit more about the 501c3, because I just started my own as well, and I just got my status approved, and I've been doing my market research and talking to probation, and that's my lane is I want to start helping out youth and the kids that are transitional aged from 18 to 24, I believe, in my area, in my county. And so, talk a little bit about that, because that's something that I'm in the process of myself.
Well, they're setting mines up right now. We've been blessed to be able to come out. I've got a lot of guys that I played with that have been supporting me along this journey, along this way, and I'm grateful for that. And friends and members that have helped me And now I just feel like it's time to, just like I'm talking to you, I think it's time to have a one-on-one. Just
Mhm.
like our barbershop talk, LeBron and some of the other guys have been doing, and just, I mean, let's get real. Let's talk about to some of these kids, some of the issues, things that they face. Let them know what's ahead, and trying to get them off of the path that they could be on, and that, and doesn't just have to be business or drugs or or anything else that could be wrong. Let's address it. Let's talk about it. Let's deal with it. And a lot of times, because we've gone through with it, I feel as though we need to get real about it. I mean, let's sit here and let's be honest and let's get real. Because if you go up in there in the jail, it's going to be real there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So let's address it before we get there. If you go to court and you got to deal with it, it's a real situation. And when you got to call up on those attorneys, and those attorneys is asking for six figures, that's a real. Well, that's real. So let's sit here and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, Holly, the feds, no joke. No, they're not a joke. They got way more money and way more manpower to send people out and do these things. Like I had 10 people that I interviewed that were um, are in federal custody right now on conspiracy charges, and I'm gonna plug tomorrow's episode. And Holly, you're gonna like this one. Robert L. Jenkins Jr. He's a federal attorney, and our topic in our discussion is going to be about conspiracy charge and how it's abused by the federal prosecutors, and how they totally manipulate that charge, and hem a whole lot of people up in it.
Well, Rob was my attorney.
Okay.
Okay, Rob and Pleasant Broadnecks, they're the best. I'm thankful that I was able to meet them, to come in line with them, and the representation that they gave me, it was A1, and it's because of those guys that I'm sitting here talking to you now, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm able still going out to do work and and take care of business and able to create things and deal with it on this end. So I'm truly grateful and thankful for what Rob has done in Pleasant Broadnecks. I mean, they're, like I said, they're the best.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation. I've been wanting to talk to a federal attorney about this, and I just haven't been able to, up to this point, reach out, with the show and everything else that I've got going on. Sometimes it's a little difficult to reach out to the places that I need to, and Allie really just, I was like, oh, we had she'd hit me up on Messenger, and we were talking, and as soon as she said the federal attorney, I'm like, whoa, oh my god. Yes, absolutely, yes, we need to do this. I want to talk.
Yeah, you've got the right one on there, then.
Yeah, Holly says she's happy you're not going to stop either. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what we need to do. I mean, it's you're not, I wouldn't look at you as a criminal. I was in the criminality part of what I was doing, and addiction and everything else. And so that's kind of why I have that space, and what I talk about, and how, and what I plan on doing on my end here in my county. But yeah, I mean, we need people, like you and I, and other people that are able to have different legs of what we're doing. Like, I'm in the media part of my lane, and my experience and my expertise that I bring as an addict, as somebody who's been through the system, been through trauma, and understand all of that. And there's folks like you who want to get involved in former NFL players, retired NFL players, and current NFL players that have platforms and people that actually listen to them. And so when we can bring all of that in together and harness that, we can move mountains, man.
Right, right. I agree, and I think that just like in business, a lot of us want to start businesses, especially now. Want to be entrepreneurs. We want to We dream on being our own, doing our own thing, but sometimes it's a lot more work involved in that whole process, and sometimes we don't realize how close to the line that we're getting in the stuff that we do. And we think, like you're saying, if it's not selling drugs, or we're not killing somebody, we're not robbing somebody, that it's not criminal. I'm just doing business, and we really have to learn uh, of what the rules are in doing business, because sometimes it costs you more once you starting to make waves, you're starting to do things out there in business, you become a target.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
there's your competition trying to pull you down. There's a lot of things that's going against you, and so I've always felt as though, especially being a black businessman, a minority businessman out here doing business at a lot of levels that people aren't used to us doing business at, that they look at things to see what's wrong. Well, how
Mm-hmm.
are you doing it? And if you're doing it, there's got to be something illegal of what you're doing. So we get more of the hard way that we go and we have to take, and I don't always feel as though that's the right way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Holly was talking. We were talking about something at one point. Um, I lost it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of challenges that are happening right now. Just in life in general, in society, and a lot of the things that are playing out right in front of us. You're from an area, Flint, Michigan, where there was some corruption going around with that and that whole water incident, and the all of that. The media starts suppressing things. Then it doesn't look like it's as big a deal as it is, and you start to see how things are lining up. It's just kind of crazy. And now I remember what I was going to say, Holly. We had talked about this with the all the PPE loans and everything else that have come out. I mean, when all of the dust settles from all of this, they're going to be combing through all that, looking for fraud and looking for ways to put people in prison.
Well, you got to look at the way I do now. The ones who can represent themselves at this level, who's able to hire the best attorneys, who's ever able to strike the best deals, as opposed to the ones that are going to get caught up in the system. And that's one of the issues that I was looking at, that I didn't want to have to address, is the civil charges, the civil issues that come along with, that you don't get to when you're dealing with white collar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is forensic accounting, forensic attorneys. It'll go through, try to represent yourself. That burns through your money more than anything else, as opposed to on a criminal charge, you're hiring the thing. That's pretty much a cut and dry case of representation is. But when you get into trying to see wire frauds and documents and all the rest of that, at $500 an hour, paying attorneys $1,000 an hour, and you got 10,000 documents and attorneys and all of that, it really eats into what you're dealing with. And that's why I want to advise and talk to some of the youth, because it's a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's representing yourself, and it's a fine line in what keeps you out of jail. And you have to ask yourself, I don't know, what is your freedom worth? How much would you pay to be free?
Well, yeah, that's where I was when I caught my case. I was like, it wasn't a conspiracy, and I was dead to rights, and they had me. But I mean, it was like, well, I'm just going to take the public defender. I mean, there's nothing I can do. I can't fight it. I don't have the money to fight it. I'd already tapped my mom out on my state charges, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna have to do what I got.
Yeah.
Send me where you got to send me.
And that's what most of us face. 95% of people that come through the Fed systems, That's why their rates are so high, convictions and everybody, because we can't afford to pay for representation once you get involved in of dealing with feds.
Yeah, Holly says you're absolutely right, and she works for the public defender's office too. So,
right. Well, I agree with you.
So that's why most people have to plead, and it's not supposed to be like that. No, I mean there's actually a documentary called the Vanishing Trial.
Right.
Have you seen that or heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's about exactly that, the conviction rates and how nobody goes to trial anymore.
Right. Yeah, everything's played out, and what you're looking at, and what the sentences are, and that's why the jails are full of people of color sitting in the jails.
Well, I think there's a little bit more of a sinister, like if you ask my personal opinion on it and everything about like how we got to where we are with the mass incarceration and having how many, 2% of the population is the prison population for the world. There's some crazy number. I can't remember what it is of people in the United States versus the rest of the world. And I think a lot of that was coincided with the fact that when they privatized the prisons, they started to need to fill those prisons up, right? And then you have, the change in the 94 crime bill, which changed all of the sentencing guidelines, mandatory minimums, and everything else. Okay, so now we've got a place to put them, and we've got a place or a way and a mechanism by which we can lock them up for longer periods of time.
Right.
Now the prison industry, which, if you've been to federal prison, it's Unicor, and they make quite a bit of money there where they're only paying people, $2 an hour. But it goes back even further than that, in my opinion. And it goes back to when the Iran-Contra thing and they started flooding the inner cities with crack.
That's right.
So all of it lines up and coincides with one another. It's like a domino effect. Okay, well, we've got the way to do it, the way to break up the communities, the way to take the men out of the homes, and all of these things kind of go together. But most people can't put it together that way. They don't understand it. They don't understand that, like, your government is capable of doing these things to you.
That's right.
And a lot of people are good people.
Right.
They're good people. They work hard. They want the best for their families. They want, what most of us want. We all really want kind of the same things, for our families, for ourselves, for our children. And we're not that much different from one another, but we're being made to feel like we're very different, right, and that we're divided. And there's all these different things that are keeping everybody away or against each other and divided from each other. When you just look back at any movement from MLK to Fred Hampton to Malcolm X, JFK, anybody that was involved in trying to unify the population, what happened to them?
Right.
They're not here no more.
Yeah.
And I made a comment today. Somebody was in a one of my friends who I had on the show, number 69, episode 69, Steve Grumbine, and I was like, well, he made a comment about, rallying the masses or something to that effect. And I'm like, well, the problem is that most people subconsciously, that's always in the back of your head when you want to speak out or speak truth to power. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to get involved in that, because if it starts gaining traction and, let's say I'm the head of it, bad things might happen to me,
right. Right.
And so sometimes, you just don't speak up and you don't say things just because of, how they've conditioned it.
Right.
We've been conditioned quite a bit from the media.
And we're scared. I mean, a lot of times when I've gone through just this incident here of dealing with of how these guys have who are doing business with, sometimes they're forcing people to take pleas, as you were saying earlier. And so now I have to get on the stand and give your narrative. to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize I have more empathy now and not just sympathy because I've gone through it now. So now I'm understanding of what it feels like being indicted and not having a voice, not being able to speak, not being able to talk. Just like you first came on there with me, reading off all the charges, all the different situations. Well, I had to hear this for a year, not being able to tell my side of the story. And that's the biggest thing that I love now is that now I get to speak my truth. I can say what really happened. I can talk about how we got caught up in this situation and how that we weren't able to um, talk about what was going on before. So now I've just had to sit back and look at people were treating me and dealing with this like I was Al Capone, like I had a mafia situation going on, that I was head of a major ring that was doing all of this. And that was one of the things that we always figured out: how could I be the head of something when the government gives those credit cards to those users? They place the orders, they do it, but I'm the one held responsible for what the government employees are head. They're the ones that are entrusted with this, with their credit cards, with their situation, but I'm the one being charged because they came to me and asked me to hold it. I'm a businessman. And if I'm giving you good customer service and you ask me to you're purchasing supplies for me for the last 20 years, I have a warehouse, you ask me to hold it because you don't have room to ship it to you and ship it to you when you request it. I didn't see anything wrong with that because we do it all the time.
Yeah.
When they want to procure it, they don't have room. The government needs to spend up a certain amount of money at the end of fiscal years or something. They ask us to, ship it later. And we do it all the time.
No, yeah, I get it, man. I would have an issue with that too.
Yeah.
Why? How is it? Yeah, it's so frustrating, man. Holly has another thing she said. So one last thing, trauma. You went through trauma because you had to lie about being on the stand, to not tell the truth, but eat it. And all of these. When you get put into a situation like that, when you have to, deal with what you had to deal with, it doesn't matter, if you're not a criminal, or if you're not, if you're a drug addict or whatever, the experience in itself is enough to put you through some PTSD and some trauma. I know when I came out of prison, I had PTSD from some of the things that I had to experience while I was in there.
Wow. Well, one of the things that I want to address what Holly was just talking about, I'm not speaking about in terms of me being on the stand because I've never got that opportunity to speak, ever. I mean, during the plea, during the whole situation, because it's the government's narrative. And once they're asking you and you're going to do a deal with them, whatever, you have to agree to whatever their narratives are, whatever their situations are. And so, and when they want to come after you, if they're always looking for somebody up higher. So what they'll do to the other people that can be involved, for them to walk, is to get everybody to rap, to tell on everybody, or to say something wrong, or to say a lie that is a lie. So, and to be able to deal with that and face it, I realize now that it was a hell of a thing, and that's kind of what I want to be able to share with the kids. That's something you don't want to have to get involved with, and deal, because because federal government has the FBI. Okay, yeah, they got the FBI, so you got to go hire investigators, attorneys, and everybody else to fight whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah, you're not gonna win that. They're gonna always be able to outspend you.
That's right. That's right.
And I thought a lot of that's by design too.
Right.
I mean, we're living in a what's up is down and what's left is right kind of world, and it's really frustrating.
Right.
Holly says again, okay, I can't stand it. Exactly. Those with the authority with credit cards, are you kidding me? And 20 years, it's all about who you are and the narrative they created.
And he got 14 days. Okay. Yeah, he got 14 days.
Yeah, I've never that's the thing that really irritates the hell out of me about the conspiracy charge is and I'm referring more to the people that I've talked to that were incarcerated, for decades, is you took the word of a criminal, somebody who's being incentivized to tell you whatever you want to hear or what they think you want to hear. And some of these folks they had importation charges. They were told that, oh yeah, I sold kilos, of methamphetamine, and a lot of these people you wouldn't let hold $50. let alone 50 kilos, right? And most of them had no vehicles, so how in the world are they going to get that drug from Mexico to here?
Right.
And some of I think one of the judges in this case, when they asked him that, they tried to argue, the importation charge, and then they kind of got shut up with, okay, well, we're going to take away your downward departure, which is your acceptance of responsibility. It's another little coercion thing to shut you up. Right. And then when they said, all right, well, I don't care about that, I want to argue it anyways, they said, well, that's where that's where drugs come from, is Mexico. So that's you know what I mean? It was okay. That's where drugs come from. That is your reasoning. There's no investigation. There's no nothing. Right. It's just investigators talking to criminals and criminals giving them information and telling them what they want to hear. So there's really no investigative work ever being done, hardly ever anymore.
It's all about trying to force somebody. They can give you their narrative and make you take a plea. And I'm glad that I've had the judge that I had. I thought Judge McGrady, I thought he was an excellent judge. I thought he was a fair judge. And I think that him giving me the opportunity to walk out that door and understanding I can have a platform to do some good things with, to come out of this, I really appreciate it. And it really helped me to really sit back and take a real good look at what was going on and to shrink your circles and watch that, what? Maybe I should have said no. Now looking back on it, I should have said no about what they came to me with that. But, this was my interpretation of what their procurement rules was. And I know we've done it in the past, so I didn't see it as being a major issue, a major problem. Especially not to this extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And Holly says, yes, broken system. We must change the front side of the system. Right. Half of these attorneys go by the playbook they are given because the system doesn't change, and it's a win for them.
Right.
Tell him reform, get it on. And yeah, we need to be thinking heavily about reform and what role that we can play
right.
In facilitating that. And lastly, she's like you, Sean, I'm here to help. Exactly. I mean, anytime anybody comes to me with injustices or needs their signal amplified to call out corruption or, speak truth to power, in a way, I guess, for whatever reach that I have, and a lot of things too, it's like, how I feel about certain things. I oftentimes wonder if it's going to affect, when I'm going to try to get grants or anything for the nonprofit or anything like that, and they start looking back at some of my episodes where I, talk about some of these things and I hope that it doesn't affect that. But like I said, if you have a big enough network and a strong enough peer group around you, let's say, we're partnering up, when the nonprofit when I actually get it going and up in the model, the way that I need it to go, at some point there's going to be, a panel of people like yourself that come and talk to these kids via Zoom or, whatever the platform is, and have them in like a sort of a seminar or, a presentation of different folks like yourself that have been through things. And, I was having a conversation with the probation manager of Contra Costa County today, and I was explaining to him that we don't listen to people with bars and stars and letters behind their names. As kids, as ex-offenders, we just don't see it because I have a hard time relating to you. Have you been through my shoes? Have you been to prison? Have you been through trauma as a child? Have you been through all of these things, or did you just read it in a book? And not that there's anything wrong with that. We need those people in the world too. But for criminal elements and people that suffer from criminality and have gone through hard knocks in their life, they're more receptive to hearing it from idols.
That's right.
Idols, people that like football players, people that they look up to, or folks that have actually been through it themselves and can relate and can speak to their experience.
I agree, because I think that most of us, I don't know I only know one person, it's Christ. Mm-hmm. Most of us we were an incident away from being in a bad situation or bad place. And maybe we just weren't stopped. Maybe we just hadn't been dealt with. But at some point, sometime, things happen in our lives to give us a different perspective. And I believe that most of the time, when you get that perspective, it's not about you. It's about something that you had to go through that you're going to be able to help the next person get through, and how they can get through it, and how they can face it and realize that they can keep going and they can move on from whatever mistake they've made and how they've done it. That we're possible to be better than what somebody else has labeled us or think that you've gone to be, that you can do it. And that's kind of where I want to deal with these kids, because kids, youth, adults, everybody else, just because we've got knocked down don't mean we have to stay down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a way up. There's a fight. And
the name of the podcast, Nowhere to Go But Up, and that's exactly what it is, because you can only go so far down till you realize that, okay, well, there's only a couple of options here.
Right.
Actually maybe two.
Right.
Either
right.
pick it up and start figuring out how to level up and do what you got to do to build that self-esteem and realize that nothing is impossible. Right. And a part of what I want to teach and what I'm doing is how to podcast and how to build a show.
Right.
And how to do every aspect of it, because what's really powerful is when you find something that gives you your voice back. And podcasting is one of kind of like the last frontier that they're not censoring yet, where you can have a voice again, and where you can have conversations like this, where you and I are talking about, things that are really important and things that impact communities and impact society. There was a lot, just like the reform that they're talking about doing, Biden's talking about doing, and that how they've stopped contracting with, certain prison industries and stuff like that. That's just fodder. You know what I mean? That's just they may be, but they're not addressing the things that really are crippling our society and our communities and our impoverished communities, poor communities. I mean, it's no mistake that these places stay the same.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
The years. Okay, the problem's been happening for how long, and it still looks the same and hardly any different than it did 25, 30, 40 years ago.
Right. Because a lot of times we believe what people tell us.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that we're only as good as what we hear. If you keep hearing that you're nothing, you're not going to be nothing, you're not going to be able to ever get out of this situation, then you believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been giving hopelessness for so long, and they've embedded that thought process in you, and you believe it, that then it is hopeless. I always believe that you can't enjoy winning until you face losing. You can't enjoy. If you've never lost, you never had any hard times, you would never understand what being happy is all about. If you've never cried, then you've never understand what laughter is. So sometimes for us to learn to appreciate what we have, what we don't have, the gifts, the opportunities we have, is that we don't realize it unless we're faced with other challenges that face us, that the possibilities of it being taken away from it and being gone. So, and I've learned to appreciate a lot more now being on this side that I took for granted on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point and a great way to look at it. And I've heard that before. But sometimes when you hear things, I talk to a lot of people, so I'll hear something a couple of times, and then that one person that I hear it from will just be like, oh, yeah, I get that. But it's absolutely true, man. I mean, if you've always been miserable, how will you ever know what happiness looks like?
Exactly.
It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what that is, so I don't know what I'm missing.
Right.
So I don't really know how to, or even know if I should navigate to it,
right.
To a destination that I don't even have the address to.
Right.
I mean, put it in layman's terms.
All thing is bad neighborhoods, bad situations. How would you know what it's like being in a good neighborhood, a good situation, good school? If you've always had bad things happening to you, I have a friend that has a program that they're doing in Detroit, and it really touched my heart because it was to realize there were some kids that are out here that has never had a private room to themselves. They've never had a bedroom to themselves. They've never been able to sit down and have a meal by themselves. Always they've grown up with being in shelters or homeless situation, being having to eat out of soup kitchens or giving that. So they don't understand what it's like to sit down in a bedroom by yourself, lay down by yourself, sit down, have a lunch or a dinner or a breakfast by yourself. And when you look at stuff like that, you realize how truly blessed that we really are.
Yeah, and two, sometimes a lot of people don't realize this too, is that when you grow up in a household that's abusive or toxic, or there's a lot of yelling and there's a lot of stuff going on, being put down and just dealing with unhealthy stuff. What ends up happening when you get older, and I realized this about myself, was you don't know how to stay in something that's not chaotic.
That's right.
Like if there's no chaos going on,
right,
you self-sabotage the situation to create the chaos that you need, because that's like familiar to you.
Right. That's what you need to function in. Yeah. That's how you survive. That's how you function.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, same way, learning to play with success, learning to live with success. You know, a lot of us aren't used to being successful and not self-sabotaging it,
Hmm.
looking for the other shoe to fall. And
Or even realizing that you do deserve to be successful.
exactly.
Because all the conditioning that you've gone through up to this point, tells you otherwise,
Right.
tells you that you're not worthy, you're, all of these other things. And so, I mean, we really need to start addressing that and start teaching our youth, how to be a human. And
Right.
how to identify things like that, like shadow work. Have you ever heard of that expression?
Yeah.
Usually when you don't like something in somebody else, it's really something that you don't like about you.
Right.
And when you want to attack somebody else for something, take a look at that. Stop for a second and pause. What is it about them that you don't like? And now turn that around and like, okay, do you possess some of those qualities that you don't like in them, that you don't like in yourself?
Right.
Because I've always found, well, not always, but when I started really thinking and looking at things in that way, in that light, that most of my problems, I didn't have to go very far from me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And figuring them out and realizing that. And I know that not everybody suffers with trauma, and not everybody, has that element to their life that causes addiction and everything else, but just dysfunctionality in general. And actually being around people that have suffered from PTSD, project PTSD on the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're a toxic person, you're causing everybody around you to now be a part of your toxicity, and now you're traumatizing them as well. And so, I mean, that's all of that is encompassed in that type of thing. So yeah, it's we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And I believe that we've got to start loving ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
start believing in ourselves first, and that anything is possible. And that's one of the things I've always preached. Hey, I played in the NFL from Flint, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
at 170 pounds. Okay, so if I can do it, that coming out of a small town in Michigan and make it to the Super Bowl at the weight that I played in, with everything in the league being much bigger than me, I'm the same size as the trainer. So yeah, being able to face that and believe, but because I had parents, family, support, everybody that told me I could do whatever I dreamt that I could do. And so that's one of the messages I want to help to get out. Because I don't believe that this is the final chapter. This is not how this was supposed to end with me. So I believe that, yeah, there's more stuff to be done, to get done. So in moving forward, and I'm looking forward to that part of it.
Yeah, me too, man. I want to continue to follow what you're doing, and hopefully we can intersect at some point, and
I would love to. I would
you
love.
know work on something and trying to get these these kids the help that they need. In my area, like I was doing some research because initially I wanted to help guys in reentry, adult males coming from incarceration, from prison, and reentering the community. But then as I started doing my research and talking to different, people in the community, and kind of asking like, what is needed? I know what I want to do, but where is the crisis sort of, and where can I be most useful to begin with?
Right.
And it was, it was told to deal with transitional youth. And then I was thinking 15 to 23. And then, just by talking to people, they're just like, no, you want to focus more on 18 to 24. And the reason being is that the youth authority in California is getting ready to shut down. They're doing away with it, and all of those, I think by 2023 it'll be shut down. So they're no longer even sending people or sentencing people to that with like longer sentences, or juveniles with that. So I mean, where are they going to go? What's going to happen? Where's the the diversion? What is, what's going to be in place of it? There's got to have something, right? And then these guys that are coming back, that have got, their sentences have been reduced and they just have to, send them home or send them to another program or a facility somewhere. And I think that's where I'm going to step in and, provide a transitional housing, plus add all the elements of, taking them to where they need to go, interviews, and not just teach you how to do a resume, but actually do mock interviews with you and actually, train you and give you skills. I want to incentivize them by doing the podcast, give you your voice back, teach you how to do all the elements of it, and then have one for the actual program that they run. And they figure out what the guests to get and what kind of, opportunities they want to talk to, who they want to interview. And as they learn how to do this, and as they start getting bigger interviews with bigger folks, like maybe their idols and stuff like that, because it'll happen. It can happen, and it would. I don't see any, celebrity type that would turn that down if some, a group of youth, transitional youth and from hard communities wanted to interview them. I don't see that as being a problem. And then that's what actually gives the self-esteem. I mean, because, when you start setting goals and achieving those goals, then you start realizing that, there's a different way to go about achieving self-esteem the right way. Right. A lot of us didn't have that. We did it in the wrong way. We did it through, manipulating women or, criminal stuff or whatever it ends up being, but it's the wrong way because, and it works in reverse because all of the people that you're hurting does the opposite to your self-esteem.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? Even though it's cloaked in a facade of, oh yeah, homeboy, I did this and I did that. Yeah, good job, man. Good looking out. Blah 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 blah. But when you really start to stop and think about what you're doing, like a lot of the things that I was doing out there, I couldn't do unless I was under the influence. Mm-hmm. Because once I would come down and I'm not high anymore, I'm starting to think of all of the damage that I caused in my wake, and it's like, I better go get high again because I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
And so it's just
that false courage.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I tell them, that it's false courage. It's our false toughness. We create situations that we think we have to be the biggest, baddest guy on the block, and we create bad situations for ourselves. But I believe everything starts with one.
Yep.
If you can grab one, you can make a difference with one. You can change one, help one to change their circumstances, their life, their thing. And I also think that this is what you want to do, what I want to do. It takes help because you need people at the top who will believe in the people that's coming out of a bad situation and doesn't just believe that those people are worth throwing away. But their lives are over because they've made a bad choice or a bad decision. That there's nothing good in them because we've done something wrong. And so you need people to believe in you. You need people that are willing to really, because that's what they keep saying of having a second chance. But society really gives us that opportunity to have a second chance. To give people that opportunity. You talk about felons being able to, their right to vote. If you've gone in and you served your time and everything, why shouldn't you come back and be restored to full citizenship in the United States?
Yeah, and that doesn't happen either because every time you catch a charge or actually anytime you get arrested, right, it goes in that permanent file.
Exactly.
And like that kept me, like I had a white collar charge in federal prison, but that history worked against me. Yeah, it doesn't go nowhere. And so instead of going to a camp, I ended up in a medium over something that, like, I didn't even plead guilty to that. Like I had a what was it? some violent charge because of a fight that I got into, and it got dropped and lowered down to something else. But just because of the initial offense and what that was in my record, they wouldn't allow me to go to a camp.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, well, you just continue to, did my time for the crime and move. There's no such thing as that. It continues year after year after year if you're in that lifestyle to affect you. So we got some more comments here from Kendra Hardy. We all fall down some way or another in life, but we can always get back up. Absolutely. And if you can't, be that person that helps someone else get back up.
That's right.
To each one, teach one, right?
There you go. That's how it's done.
Returning citizens or hashtag returning citizens. Fantastic interview. And I think that was from Sandy Freeze. She was the one who didn't have the Facebook name.
Okay.
Kendra, again, I love this, Brian Carpenter. I always wanted to help with this. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sean Dustin, you are angelic. Well, I appreciate that. I really do. You need to contact your state senator to have a meeting.
Okay.
In Maryland, if you have a felony after serving your time, you just need to register to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that I didn't even realize that I could vote when I got out of prison because I just believed that, I'm a felon, I can't vote.
Right.
And so I got out in 2010 or 2006, and I didn't vote until 2016 for the first, or no, actually till this year for the first time. But in 2016, I just didn't. I knew that I could, but I just didn't like any of the choices, so I didn't. But yeah, it was. I didn't believe it. And Kendra in Maryland, if you're up in the Baltimore, Maryland area, check out a video or an episode that I did. I believe it's 97. It's in the high 90s, but it's with Dr. Carmen Johnson, and she actually got sent to federal prison for 3 years when she was helping out with the 2009 financial crisis and trying to keep people in their homes and stop the moratorium from the illegal foreclosures that were happening.
Right.
So she saved like 800 families from being evicted, but she wouldn't play ball with some of the bigwigs in Maryland, and they wanted her to say that there wasn't any illegal foreclosures, and she'd proven that there was. And she was on the board of the NAACP Maryland chapter, and she was involved pretty heavily, and she was just a business person. Same thing as you. But since she wouldn't play ball, they wrapped her up in some other indictment charge, and they found her name connected with somebody that she had done business with. But I mean, it was like she was doing credit restoration, and so she worked with a bunch of different real estate agencies, and just so happened that these people were being indicted on something, and they threw her into it as well, and that was the tie that they needed. And she did 3 years in federal system. Yeah, it's a really good interview, and she's out here advocating now too of her situation. And so I mean, it's not a new thing, man. It's just we need to start speaking out against it and
many stories, so many people that don't have voices. So I really applaud you for what you're doing of giving people a voice, and that's huge. That's big. Because there's a lot of people that need to be able to tell their story and be heard. And so I really thank you for this opportunity and applaud you for what you're doing. And then keep it up. Keep doing it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I actually would like to have you back on, and we can talk about football.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And your career and what that was like. And, because not a lot of people get to experience that.
Okay. Anytime. Just let me know.
And one more question, and it has to do with football and the past event that we just had.
Okay.
How crazy is that? That dude is it that guy, that Tom Brady is that good, and Gronkowski is that good, that they can that they could go from, one, doing what they did with the Patriots and then just coming right back and bam, hit it again? Or is that just luck?
No, it definitely is not luck. First thing I'd like to say, one about Tom Brady, I love him because he's a Michigan man. That's where I went to school at. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, but two, he works hard. It was good. I think the coaches, Todd Bowles and Leftwich and those guys, they had a great game plan. And I think, I know a lot of people are saying that they hate seeing Brady keep winning. And my thing is, what I keep saying is, then beat him.
Yeah, right.
He's not supposed to beat himself. It takes somebody to go out and beat him. And I think, I didn't grow up with seeing the Jim Browns in the area. I've heard a lot about them from my father and them, or the Bill Russells and to see all the championships and stuff that they've done. So I think it's pretty nice to be able to live during this time to see something that's going to be great. That's something that you'll be able to say you've witnessed. I've witnessed this because I don't think this was going to be done in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think so either. Kendra says they have a diverse coaching staff. They put the work in.
That's right.
Yep.
I was like, you know what she's talking about.
She sure does, doesn't she? We've had a couple of cool guests or people that were commenting on and giving some great input. Okay. Thank you for the participation, you guys out there. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, why don't you go ahead and plug anything that you want if you've got some stuff to plug, and then we can just go ahead and wrap up, and we'll do the outro, and then hang out in the green room for a second, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, one of the things we've got our official page. I'm not sure if can you still see me?
No, I can't. You went.
Okay. Our official site on our Facebook page. We've got Facebook, Twitter that we've got going on. We've got some websites coming on with the Flintstone Group. So just hit us up and let us know. It is Facebook. The official Brian Carpenter on Facebook. So just hit us, follow us.
I got it right there up on the screen for you guys. Then he's also got Instagram, official Brian Carpenter. And then you can also go down into the description of this podcast, and then when it actually goes and airs live for the people that are listening to it on the podcast platforms, which will be tomorrow or the next day. I've got 2 of them to push out, and I also got 2 more interviews lined up for this week as well. But that'll be out there, and all of the direct links are available in the show notes or in the description of everything that I do on all of my broadcasts. So, if you want to connect with Brian, do it. Go ahead and do that there. And also, if you want to connect with the show, like I said, all my links and everything are in the description as well. And if there's nothing else, I guess we can get out of here.
All right. Hey, been fun.
Thank you, brother, and I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who's commented. I think I lost a couple. All right, we'll do a couple more. James, somebody I know, been known for a while. Great conversation. I'm telling you, Sean, the podcast has good substance. Well, I appreciate that, brother. It's taken me a minute to get to where I'm at, but I've kind of found my lane, and I'm doing what I can with it. And Kendra, yes, sir, I know the facts. So hang out for a second, and everybody who's joined me this evening, I appreciate it. And until next time, I will see you guys later.
You've been listening to the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Sean is a single dad, a union blue-collar guy, and he spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. When he was released from prison in 2006, all he had was the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and some paperwork. Since then, he's turned his life around and shares the struggles and successes on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you were moved to to connect to the show, book a guest spot. For merch, Patreon, PayPal, and social media links, go to linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. On Instagram at nowhere to go but up now. On Twitter at but up now. On the YouTube channel at nowhere to go but up podcast. See you next time.